My name is Pastor Kevin Brown. I'm senior pastor of Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church here in Lansing. And what a phenomenal, phenomenal day it is to celebrate the life, the work, and the legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. We're here in Lansing live at what has turned out to be the longest running and the largest lunch tribute to Martin Luther King in the country, right here in downtown Lansing, Michigan. What makes it great, you have almost 1,800 people that come together from different walks. Everybody grew up from different ways, but we all come together because we all are one family. And this is a day that we celebrate it. We put down our differences and we shift our focus to similarities. And what we find is our focus is a multiplier. When we begin to focus on similarities, we see more in each other. And we talk about issues that affect us as people.
Good morning. Good morning. Come on, there's 1,800 of you in here. Good morning. Awesome. I am Elaine Hardy, and I am the very, very, very proud chairperson for the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Commission of Mid-Michigan. Every year, I have the privilege of having this vantage point that I get to look out and see all of the amazingness of our Mid-Michigan region. But I particularly want to talk about the amazingness of the greater Lansing region. 35 years ago, the commission started having an annual luncheon celebration. But we, in fact, are 41 years old. Now, we maintain that we are the oldest continuously operating commission outside of Atlanta in the entire country. Savannah, Georgia challenges me with that, but I always remind them that during our annual remembrance of the 50th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. King, that I was able to ring the bell at the First African Baptist Church. So I think that they've conceded that we're the oldest. But I will also say that I think that we are the best. We have a unique community. And every time I look out at you and I see all of the amazing brown and white and yellow faces and people of all faiths, people wearing hijabs and people who don't, people who come here from every walk of life, working class, professors, presidents of universities, I am reminded of what an amazing community that we live in. And I'm reminded about the amazing support that we have. So I want for you to give yourself a round of applause for being the oldest and the baddest. This year we are commemorating the 55th anniversary of the Selma Marches and the Voting Rights Act. And we're asking you to remember Selma with us. We have a physical connection to Selma in our community. People who actually were there to march on March 25th of 1965 in one of our own commissioners, Dr. Lee June. We're connected to Selma, all of us, for a lot of reasons. First and foremost, America saw the atrocity that happened on Bloody Sunday. And what it reminded America is that America is bigger than what we were showing ourselves to be then. That this country was founded on the ideals that every one of us is equal, and that every citizen in this country is entitled to all of the benefits of its citizens, no matter what color of your skin, how old you are, how young you are, or who you worship. Our theme this year is There Comes a Time When Silence is Betrayal, ties into that Selma movement in this very particular way. when America saw that humans, American citizens, were being denied their right to vote just because the color of their skin, Americans did not keep silent. It is important that if you have a voice and you see something wrong, you have got to stand up. You have got to speak out. You have got to say something. That's the very thing that makes our country different from any other place on this earth. That's the reason why there's a such thing as an American dream, because we believe in the ideals that this country was founded on. Look, I am an American. I am a proud American. I don't want to live in any other country in the world. I believe that my ancestors worked and built this country just like I believe all of your ancestors worked and built this country. So I am not leaving. I am going to stay here. I am going to fight. I am going to dig in. And I am never, ever, ever going to give up the fight until everybody in this country is free. My challenge to you is that you join us in that you join this commission in that fight. So we have this really dear friend, right, who you have seen become our honorary chairperson for the last 5 years. And you know why he is? Not because he is a multi-glamorate corporation who supports the commission with financial resources. It's because his heart is in what we do. And that is the person of Mark McDaniel from Senior.
Thank you. I'll have fun. First of all, I love this orchestra. I always have to say hi to them. Well, greetings. My, oh my, oh my. Look at this room. 1,800 people. 1,800 people. Today is the one day I can guarantee you that this is the one place in this whole country that is filled with people of all races, all incomes, all backgrounds, all different political views, but it's full of love and happiness. One of my favorite artists, Al Green, wrote a song about love and happiness, right? And love and happiness, it does, I mean, it resonates in this room today, and it just, when I hear it, it just makes me want to dance. And I just dance. There, I got it out of me. You're all safe now. True story, last year, Governor Wilder's assistant, we were in the back room afterwards, and he came up, took me aside, really serious, puts his hand on my shoulder, and he says, Mark, he said, I just want to tell you, we have Virginia, a few years ago, passed this felony law, and they're talking about passing the same thing in Michigan now. And I'm like, really? What's the issue? And I was serious. I mean, really, he caught my attention. He said, well, it's a felony in Virginia to dance while white. I'm not kidding. That's not like one of those jokes you tell I'm seriously. He did serious face, and I fell all the way in on it. And so, but the thing is, I'll be locked up for life because I just love to dance. So next. There's a lot of energy in here already, but I'd like to see a little bit more. So I'd like all of you to stand up. I want you all to look at the person next to you, give them a hug, and express love and happiness to them, please. All right. All right. Let's get everybody can just sit down now. Okay. That felt pretty good. It's an honor for me to be asked to be the honorary chairman again this year. It's a wonderful event. I take it very seriously. I want to do everything I can to represent the commission and the memory of Dr. King the best that I can. Bernero was started 27 years ago. It's evolved into a certified community development finance institution, serving 9 states with 7 offices. We exist for the purpose that we believe that all people deserve the opportunities that are provided by living in a healthy community. Healthy community is different. What's it look like? It's different for everyone. Everybody has a different opinion. For us, what we're focused on, what we believe in, it's a community that has racial diversity, has income diversity, has housing choices that are safe, decent, affordable for rent and home ownership, has access to good schools. It's a community that is safe and free of crime. It has access to healthy food choices, access to fair lending institutions, and jobs. There's many more that you can all add on to that, but this is why we're here. This is why we support the work of the commission. It's who we are to our core. Now, I want to tell you a story. It's a somber and very sad one. I went back and forth about if I wanted to do this or not. But when I read the essays based on this year's theme, There Comes a Time When Silence is Betrayal, the power of those readings gave me the fortitude to tell it. Now, some of you will be uncomfortable, and I know some of you may even be a bit angry, but it needs to be heard. Some of you remember 4 years ago when I was up here. I was a bit distressed because I just found out my mom and my sister were coming to this event. And right before I came up here, I got a call from my sister saying that Mom had been taken to the ER in Kalamazoo and wouldn't be able to make it she had a heart issue. Normally, I would jump in my car, drive there immediately. My sister said, man, you best not do that because Mom will be mad. And so nobody wants your mom mad, right? So I stayed. So anyway, at the lunch intermission, a young man came up to me to talk. He told me he could feel the pain I was in and that he wanted to provide me comfort. He told me he had written a poem for me, hoping that it might help. He gave it to me, walked away. I read it, made me cry. Not with sadness, but happy for what he took the time to do. I had no idea who he was or where he was. I called him out in front of all of you to try to find him, but Anthony Winston finally found him sitting over with his grandmother and introduced me afterwards. Anthony and I were humbled to hear his grandma and his story. His name was Elijah. His grandma had taken him and his brother into her care a year or so before. His mom was unable to focus on their upbringing in Phoenix. And so he and his brother came here to Lansing to be with grandma. Elijah had a number of learning and social disabilities. For the whole first year, he was a hermit in his grandma's house. His social anxiety and fear of getting in trouble kept him there. In fact, this event that year was the first time he had really ventured out when she brought him to be part of the celebration. You can imagine how hard that was for him. But this event was a trigger for him to start to blossom and grow. The words and views of Dr. King filled him with confidence, and he started to grow. Anthony took him under his wing as a mentor. Bernero and I continued to do whatever we could to keep that growth alive. He would come to many of our events, and he and his grandma, we would help him go to concerts and other things just to help him get out and socialize. He came to one of my fundraisers to help homeless families, and he paid to have a pie thrown in my face. A lot of people pay to do that. I challenged him, back. I asked him, I said, okay, if you do that to me, I want you to get up and do one of your off-the-cuff poetic riffs that he was so good at. And he did. He got up in front of more of 100 people, and he hit it, and he got a standing ovation. He stayed in touch. We all stayed in touch in different ways. His grandma was so proud of him. Let's move forward to last fall. Elijah decided he wanted to go to Phoenix to see his mom and cousins and other family members. His grandma, Anthony, and I, our hearts fell a bit because we all had the same fear. This might not be good. He got there, and it wasn't long before that dreadful feeling for Grandma and Anthony started to take hold. They tried to get him to come back, but he said, he wasn't ready yet. What happens next? There was a report to the Phoenix police that there'd been some random shooting from a car. Not at anyone, just random. The police tracked down one of the people who then implicated Elijah for being in the car. What I saw next, I watched the raw video of what happened next. Elijah just pulled into a store with his cousin, another young relative, and the cousin's baby in the back. They were there to get diapers. While waiting in the car for his cousin, a van and an SUV slowly pull up behind them. Out of the van, person in tactical gear and a rifle gets out. Two others get out of the SUV, yelling to get out of the van started. You could see the panic and anxiety ratchet up in Elijah. Mind you, he has anxiety and other disabilities. He fumbled to get out. When he does, his hands go up. You witness 7 shots. Bang, 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 bang. Elijah drops. With guns still pulled. Everyone stood over him for the rest of the video. No attempts to scare him or help him as Elijah's hopes, brilliance, kindness spilled out on the pavement and leaves. Elijah's dead. It was horrible to watch. Anthony and I watched it over and over, hoping for a different ending, I guess. Investigations followed, and then all was quiet. We've lost a special person who was positively impacted the day his grandma brought him to this event. He attended every one of them since. This event was a turning point for him, and he grew not to be afraid and to use his talents that he had. He also knew that there was a community here in Lansing that loved him. He told me he was so thankful being able to come to this celebration, what being in the presence of Dr. King's spirit did for him. So Elijah, I couldn't be silent. I didn't want to betray your memory. For me today, this is for you and your kindness and the spirit you brought to many. Thank you. All right, we'd like to now go to the invocation. Is Pastor Marvin Williams with Trinity Church.
Good morning. Would you pray with me? God of justice, God of righteousness, God of love and God of peace, we stand before you, sit before you now with a sense of deep, deep and profound gratitude. We thank you for the freedom that we share. We thank you for our common humanity. We thank you for the progress that has been made. We thank you for the pockets of peace that we see. We thank you for the fabric of diversity that we see. We stand before you with profound gratitude for all that has happened that give us hope that there's a better tomorrow. And so thank you. Thank you. Not only do we stand and sit here with a profound sense of gratitude, we also stand and sit with a deep ache in our hearts. That whereas we've made progress, we know that there is so much more progress to be made. God, we ask that you would, where there is rudeness, we ask and ache for more civility. God, where there is hatred, we ache for more love. God, where there is confusion, we ache for more peace. And God, where there is injustice, we ache for more justice. God, where there is silence, we ache for more courage to speak out. And so we stand here, sit here, conflicted, joyfully conflicted, with a profound sense of gratitude, and yet there's this sense of wanting more of what we know is in your heart. And so we pray, God, that where our hands have gotten weary, we pray that you would shore up our hands so that we can continue to fight. God, we pray that where our knees are buckling and we want to give up, we pray that you would resurrect hope in our lives so that we may continue to speak out and continue to fight for justice and peace. God, we pray that we would not get weary in well-doing. We thank you for all those who've gone before us. And we pray that we would be representatives of the light and justice and peace that they died for. And so on this day, we thank you for that drum major, Dr. Martin Luther King. Thank you for his life and thank you for his legacy. And we pray that this would not just be a perfunctory kind of event, but that this would be a catalyzer. This would be a catalyst for something greater. And so we yield our hands and we yield our minds and we yield our lives afresh in this moment. And we ask that you would do something significant in us, that we would leave here ready to continue the fight. So we pray your handprint would be all over this program and that you in the end would get the glory for everything. We pray all of this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Now, would everybody please stand for the national anthem, sung by Sharon Lawrence, accompanied by Phil Denny.
So proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming. For the land
remain standing. We're going to do the next anthem of Lift Every Voice. Ms. Colleen Adams.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Oh, sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Oh, sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us, facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Oh, God of our weary years, God of our present fears, thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, thou who hast by thy might led us into the light. Keep us forever here in the path we pray. Oh, lest our feet drunk with the wine of the world we forget. Oh, lest our hearts drunk with the wine of the world we forget. Lord, don't let us forget thee under the mighty hand. May we forever, ever stand true to our God, true to our native land. Oh, let us sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught. Oh, sing a song full of the faith that the present has brought us, facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Oh, let us march home, oh, till justice runs out. Let us march home till righteousness runs like a river. Let us march on till victory is won. Let us march on till all men see. Let us march on, they see liberty. Let us march on till victory it is won. Oh, my brother, we've got to let us march on. In times like these, we've got to let us march on till victory is won.
All right. Isn't there some talent in this city? Man. All right, y'all can sit down now. So we have a number of greetings and remarks from our elected officials. I'd like to start off first with the Mayor of Lansing, Andy Shore.
This just looks awesome. I wish you could all see this. I see that they're showing some of the kind of the overhead views. Please look at the boards. There is nothing more exciting than 1,800 people here in the city of Lansing celebrating Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. This is just all, you should all give yourselves a hand. But thank you all for joining me here today in Lansing, joining us for the nation's oldest and biggest, I'm gonna go with Elaine, we're the nation's oldest and biggest, bar none, ceremony, lunch, whatever we wanna call it, on behalf of Dr. King and his legacy. Thank you to the Martin Luther King Commission for all they've done. I keep telling people this is a hard job. They do a lot of work. They should be commended. I want to recognize 3 council people that I saw were here from Lansing: Councilman Brandon Betts, Councilwoman Patricia Spitzley, and Council President Peter Spatafor. If I missed anyone, my apologies. But let me start with commending the commission. They knew this day was coming, and they went to Washington, D.C., and they were able to convince Congressman John Lewis to join us here today. And that's not an easy thing to do because he stays in his district. Elaine will tell you the story, but he stays in his district, but they got him to come here, and looking out at this audience, we all know why. Now, circumstances have come up. He's fighting cancer, his next big challenge. We've all gotten together to pray for him, and we know that he's going to fight. He is a living legend, so we can't replace him, but I am excited to have Andrew Aiden here to speak, so thank you for coming to Lansing. You've already hit Big B, so you've gone to one of the institutions. That's good news. You know, even though it's been more than 50 years since Dr. King's assassination, we know there's still work to be done. We celebrate today his life and legacy and the changes that he made in the world, but we also continue to dedicate ourselves to continuing the work that needs to be done to unify our communities and our nation. Earlier this year, I was honored to be invited to Birmingham, Alabama at the invitation of Mayor Randall Woodfin. And while we were there, we visited the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute. As you know, Birmingham was the epicenter of the civil rights movement, and you can still feel that rich history in Birmingham today. Dr. King was arrested in Birmingham in 1963, and he spent 11 days in jail. I got to visit the jail the jail cell at the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute, and I left in awe of Dr. King and the leaders who pushed to unite Birmingham and the South in a time of great upheaval. Most know that Dr. King wrote his famed letter from Birmingham jail, and if you haven't read that letter, I recommend that you do. All of it, not just the parts that we know are famous, are moving. King's words are poignant and pointed, and they called out those who criticize his actions, as well as those who have stayed silent and allowed terrible things to happen. And that goes right into our message today, that we don't want to be silent. It's in this letter that King famously penned, "Injustice everywhere is a threat to justice, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." And he also said, "Whatever affects one directly affects us all indirectly." He called out those who perpetrated violence based on racial differences, as well as those who turned a blind eye when these horrible acts happened. I wish I could stand before you today and tell you that we've solved all these problems in the last 50 years, but we know the work continues. I'm proud of the work that we're doing here in Lansing. I'm proud that we have a Diversity and Inclusion Commission, which are working hard. Thank you to all the members. I've seen several members in the crowd today. Thank you for all of those who are part of that commission on behalf of Lansing. I announced that here 2 years ago, and we've just had tremendous response. And I'm just proud of the great diversity throughout the city of Lansing. So in the words of Congressman Lewis, never give up, never give in, never become hostile. Hate is too big a burden to bear. We have to work together each and every day to ensure that we continue to have the welcoming community here in Lansing and everywhere else that we want and expect. Lansing's time is now. I'm proud to lead the city of Lansing. I appreciate you all being here. While our work is not done, we will continue to work. Thank you for coming to Lansing today. Thanks. Sorry about that.
Killed me. All right, next we have the Mayor of East Lansing, Ruth Baier.
Good morning. It's an honor to be here representing my favorite city, the city of East Lansing, Michigan. I will admit that I'm a little bit overwhelmed, but I was looking at the program. I'm used to speaking to groups of labor workers in labor halls that are often this big, and Dr. King did say the labor movement was the principal force that transformed misery and despair into hope and progress, so I think I'm in good hands here. As you know, for over 30 years, the City of East Lansing has been the key sponsor of this luncheon through their work with the Mid-Michigan Commission for Martin Luther King Jr. And in addition to this, they also spend time during the year as volunteers spreading the message of Dr. King with events and scholarships. So again, thank you to the commission, and I know Elaine Hardy will introduce them at the end of this session, which is why I'm not going to introduce them here. As mayor of East Lansing, I'm proud to say that we have in East Lansing continued to fight for the rights of all oppressed people. We were the first city in the country to adopt a Martin Luther King Memorial Day before the federal legislation went into effect. That feeling in East Lansing does make us a pocket of peace in Michigan, and I'm overwhelmingly proud to be mayor of that city. The theme for this year's celebration of the life of Dr. King is a quote that there comes a time when silence is betrayal. As I kept that quote in my mind for the last week as I was thinking about my remarks, and it was in my mind when I was asked to teach a lesson on Dr. King to a second grade classroom in a local public school. I started with a discussion, and I was amazed at what the students already knew by second grade about Dr. King. I was also moved by how angry they were at the unfairness of racism. If you know any second graders, they're all about fairness. They have to have the same amount of milk as everybody else. And everybody should be treated the same regardless of the color of their skin. They don't think of it any other way. So everybody had something to say. It was very interesting. I was moved. And then one little boy, sitting in the back, because that's where he likes to sit, raised his hand. He's one of our 4 children of color in the room. And he said, "Sometimes I'm sad because I think my classmates don't like me because I'm brown." Immediately I thought, well, I have to do something here. I'm afraid because I don't know what 7 and 8-year-olds are going to say to this student. But then I remembered that quote, that sometimes silence can be betrayal, and I thought, I'm not going to silence this. This conversation has to happen, and maybe it can't happen too early. So I said a quick prayer, and I needn't have worried. Every student's hand was up. Every student said to this young man, "You're our friend. We don't care what color you are. You're not any browner than I am in the summer." It was second grade. And all of these comments made him feel better. Some students said they loved him, and they don't throw that word around. And so I was moved anyway. And then my most articulate student came to me and said, "Can I go last?" He's also a bit dramatic. I said, "Sure." So he said, I won't say the student's name, he said, "We had a fight at recess today, and I told you you were the worst friend ever. I did not say that because you're brown. I said that because I was being selfish, and I'm sorry. You are not the worst friend ever. You're the best friend ever. And it makes me sad if people are mean to you because you're brown." So then we had to stop the conversation because I was going to cry, and that would have blown all of my authority with these students. So I said that was an excellent discussion, and we moved on. I wanted to tell this story today because this celebration is a celebration of hope. And when I think about this group of students who are 7 and 8 years old, if they represent that generation, then I have hope that the future will be better than the present. Thank you.
Next, we have our Congresswoman, Honorable Elissa Slotkin. Good to see you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Melissa Slotkin. I am the congresswoman for Michigan's 8th District. We are in the 8th District. And I want to thank the MLK Commission and Elaine Hardy for putting together what seems to me to be the biggest lunch that we've had in the time that I've been attending. I will say that this year, I've been your congresswoman for 1 year. And when I spoke at this event last year, I had just started. January 3rd, we were sworn in as a new freshman class. And when I started to think about what I wanted to say today, I started to think about John Lewis, who was supposed to be here today. He is my fellow congressman. I have the amazing honor to serve with him, alongside him. And the commission, when they came to Washington to ask Congressman Lewis to speak at this event, they stopped by my office and we talked about what a coup it would be to get him to come and speak in front of this event. And I know we are all thinking about him as he pursues his fight with cancer right now. But because he is Congressman Lewis, because he was close with Martin Luther King, because he was on the Edmund Pettus Bridge, because he's been a voice for civil rights for his entire life, he was chosen by Speaker Pelosi to address our freshman class in our first week when we first came into office. And I will remember forever what he told us. And he said, "It is not enough to attend, you must act. And I am deputizing all of you to get into good trouble." Good trouble was his phrase, and I love that phrase because it represents what all of us, I think, really need to be doing in the face of what's going on right now in our country. It is no longer enough to attend. We must find a way to act. We must find a way to honor him and honor Dr. King by getting into some good trouble. And I will tell you, as your representative, I am ready to lead the charge. I am proving to be like a little good at getting into good trouble. If you've watched any news, it's been an interesting couple of weeks and months. And it was the greatest honor of my year. About a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago now, when it looked like we were on the precipice of a war with Iran, I authored a war powers resolution to say to the president, if you are going to intentionally or unintentionally drag us into war, you are going to come back to Congress to seek permission along with what the Constitution told you to do. And that is something that I believe in strongly. My husband with 30 years in the Army. And one of the greatest honors was not only to lead that, but Congressman Lewis, who is unwell, who has not been voting since we came back from New Year's, he came in the day of that vote. He was linked arm in arm with 2 other members who were helping him onto the floor of the House, and he voted on that resolution because he understood the importance of pushing back. And I want to tell you, watching him, of everything that I've seen in the past year, watching him vote on that resolution was one of my proudest moments. I am proud to be up here representing the new freshman class and the spirit that he has taught us with. So, thank you. I cannot tell you that it is the greatest honor of my life to be the representative of the 8th District. It is literally a privilege every single day, and I commit to you, if you come with me, let's go get into some good trouble in 2020. Thanks very much.
Thanks. All right, next our Senator, U.S. Senator Gary Peters. Good to see you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Tell you, it is indeed an honor to be here to stand before you and celebrate the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. You know, one of the greatest lessons that he taught us was that our communities, our democracy, our country are stronger when we work together as one American people. The principle is fundamental to our nation. It's our motto, e pluribus unum, out of the many, one. Dr. King understood that our democracy relies on a healthy exchange of diverse ideas and knew that our country would only flourish if we were able to bridge the differences between ideologies and cultures and religions. But unfortunately, throughout his life, Dr. King was confronted by people determined to divide us, to exploit our differences for their own gain. He called those wishing to sow discord the children of darkness. He said, and I quote, "It is still one of the tragedies of human history that the children of darkness are frequently more determined and zealous than the children of the light." Today, we must commit to being part of Dr. King's children of the light, people who seek to find common ground and unite our country. Dr. King knew the power of words. But today in our social media feeds in our neighborhoods and from the highest leaders in the land, words are being used to divide us rather than unite us. When the children of darkness use their words to demonize certain groups of people or appeal to our deepest fears instead of our greatest hopes, we cannot let them win. We must speak out. We cannot let them be more determined or more zealous. In the final public speech before his tragic assassination, Dr. King said, and I quote, "Let us rise up tonight with a greater readiness. Let us stand with a greater determination, and let us move on in these powerful days, these days of challenge, to make America what it ought to be." Dr. King never gave up the fight for a better nation, and neither can we. We live at a pivotal time in our history. We are literally now in a fight for the heart and soul of this country. But I have some good news. Dr. King said again, and I quote, he said, "I believe what self-centered men have torn down, other-centered men can build up. I am confident that other-centered men and women will prevail in the end." As long as we remember these final words from Dr. King, this is no time for apathy or complacency. This is a time for vigorous and positive action. The future of our country depends on us, the children of the light, to continue carrying that torch that was lit so many years ago. We must keep that fire burning, and as we walk out of these doors today, we must proclaim that we are committed to be part of Dr. King's children of the light. Thank you.
Our other U.S. Senator, Debbie Stabenow.
Well, good afternoon. It is always absolutely wonderful for me to be here, and I can tell you I have the opportunity to travel all over the state, and there is no bigger, no better MLK celebration in our state than right here in Lansing, and I'm very proud of all of you for that. And it's great to be here with my partner in the Senate, Senator Gary Peters, and partner in the House, Lissa Slotkin. And I have to say thank you to Mark McDaniels, not only for his leadership and sponsorship and all the other sponsors that are here, but for an incredibly powerful story that should touch all our hearts and remind us of what's most important. And I want to give big kudos to Elaine Hardy and the MLK Holiday Commissioners for all of your incredible passion and dedication over the years, and our two great mayors. So we've got a great team that's working. You know, we come from a variety of backgrounds, all of us. I've lived in Lansing my entire adult life and have been in awe of all of the people that come together, even through our differences, to make things happen that are positive for the greater Lansing, Ingham County community. And even though we have differences, we come together because of a shared set of values and humanity that is frankly needed now more than ever. We are in very difficult times. In fact, right now, while we are here, the flames of racism and bigotry are spreading through Richmond, Virginia, just 2 years after Charlottesville. And I know you join me in praying that no one is hurt today. The division that's happening in our country is heartbreaking, it's maddening. People are scared, they're feeling weary. I join that. But the worst thing we can do is give in to the fear, right? Give in to the fear or the anger or the weariness, and that's why we're here. I believe first we need to reach out and be kind to one another. We need to listen to one another. Listen and respect others' views. And in a time when our shared values are being tested, it's more important than ever that we stand up and speak out and take action. During the civil rights movement, Dr. Martin Luther King faced similar racism and violence. And whenever silence was the safer path, Dr. King stood up, he spoke out, he took action. Dr. King had great moral courage, and he wasn't alone. Not long ago, I saw a movie, Harriet. Have you seen it? Anyone? Beautiful, beautiful movie. Tells the story of Harriet Tubman, a woman of great moral courage. She was a slave in Maryland and found freedom by escaping hundreds of miles on foot by herself. She could have lived a relatively safe or quiet life, but instead she went back and went back again and went back again, moving the Underground Railroad forward to allow people to escape. She courageously served as a Union spy and a nurse, and later she led the fight for women's suffrage. A woman of great moral courage. I've had the privilege to work alongside two men of great moral courage in the Congress, both in the House and the Senate, the first being Congressman John Lewis, and the second being Congressman Elijah Cummings, who we sadly lost in October. Congressman Lewis was on the front lines of civil rights movement with Dr. King, and his moral courage has never faded, never. I know we're all praying for him and his family right now as he undergoes treatment. We wish he could be here. I know he wishes he could be here. But he's strong, and if anybody can beat this, he will. The late Congressman Elijah Cummings was another man of great moral courage. One of his famous quotes is, "We're better than this." And he was right. We are better than this. And the good news is you don't have to be Elijah Cummings or John Lewis or Harriet Tubman or Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to prove it. We all can live with moral courage every single day. And we need to now more than ever. Above all, we can live by Dr. King's words, "I have decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear." So as we today celebrate Dr. King's life, his legacy, let us rededicate ourselves to living our lives with moral courage, and let us stick with love. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Always good to see you.
Thank you. Take care now.
Yeah, I will.
Keep the battle going.
Yes.
All right, next we have our Lieutenant Governor of the state of Michigan, Garland Gilchrist.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. It is an honor and a privilege to stand here before you at this beautiful, momentous, one of the largest gatherings in the country to celebrate Martin Luther King Jr.'s life and legacy. And I want to stand here, I come here with a spirit of gratitude to say thank you. Thank you for enabling Governor Gretchen Whitmer and I to serve you and to serve the entire state of Michigan. I'm proud to stand here on the shoulders of giants not just like Reverend Dr. King, not just like Congressman John Lewis, who I love what Congresswoman Slotkin talked about, how he always challenged us to get into the right kind of trouble. I thank you for all of the things that you are doing in this community and in all the communities that you touch every single day by ensuring that other people can also find the way to impact those communities for the greater good. But I want to share something, because part of that privilege that I was given to serve as Lieutenant Governor of Michigan and to be the first person who looks like me or who's from where I'm from to serve in that position, it creates a whole lot of tension and these kind of challenging moments of reflection that hit me almost daily. And in preparation for this grand event, one of them struck me quite plainly. So, I'm from Detroit. Yeah. But I come to work in Lansing almost every day. And I work in the George Romney building. Now, there are people here who have a little bit more experience in life than I have. And so y'all know what that building used to be. That building used to be Hotel Olds. And what's striking about the fact that I, Garland Gilchrist II, can serve as the first Black Lieutenant Governor of the state of Michigan and have an office in the George Romney building, it means that I have an office and I go to work every day in what used to be Hotel Olds. Now, the irony of someone like me going to work in a building like that and a job like this is that people who I am related to, my ancestors, my grandparents, Black folks from all around the country, when they sought to travel to the great state of Michigan, when they sought to come to the city of Lansing, those from out of state had to use something called a green book. Y'all know about a green book? They had to use the green book to figure out where Black folks could stay when they came to Michigan, because it wasn't always safe to stay someplace up north. And when they did that, there were only 5 places in Lansing they could visit. And not one of them was the Hotel Olds. So if you think about it, what we have created together is the opportunity for people who never could have imagined being in the positions that they are in, able to come and serve communities across this state. And I think the challenge that Dr. King's Day of Service now represents for all of us, the challenge that Congressman Lewis has put forward to every single person who has ever been privileged enough to hear his voice, is a challenge that asks of you, what are you doing to make sure that somebody else can do more? That they can go to places that not only they have never gone before, but that no one like them has ever gone before. When we're talking about the fact that sometimes silence is betrayal, I would argue that the silence that prevents people from speaking up to create the impossible is the betrayal of future generations. So the call to action I want to leave you with today is to look within yourself. What are you doing in your family, in your place of worship, in your place of business, in your institution of education, in the places where you collect with other members of the community? how are you making those spaces more available to more people? Whether they are people who don't look like you, who don't worship like you, who don't speak like you, who don't have your same life experiences, or who just have fewer experiences than you do. The most striking thing about Congressman Lewis's history, to me, is not the mere acts that we know him for. But if you look at that graphic novel that's on your table, what I'm struck by is how young he was when he did it. But how many of you have asked a young person to wait their turn? How many of you have said that, you know what, you need a little bit more under your belt before you can sit at this table? If people would have said that to John Lewis, then none of us would know who he is. But because he stepped into that future and that power and that purpose, I'm asking, I'm challenging, I'm demanding that all of you do the same. Because if and when you do, this community, this city, this state, this nation, and this world will be better for it. Thank you. God bless you, Lansing. Let's keep working.
Thank you. Excellent. I have to say, you know, the theme, whoa, he's tall. The theme this year, this is like perfect. This has brought the best out, I think, of everyone. These remarks that we just heard, honestly, they're the best I've heard in all the times I've been coming to this. You were on the mark, you had passion, you meant it, and you could feel it, and I appreciate it. I just want to say, Mary and I have our oldest daughter and our granddaughter here today. Madeline, hi, wake up. What'd you think of Papa dancing? Yeah, okay. We felt it was important to have Madeline's 7. I think it's important for kids 7, 8, 9 to start learning who Martin Luther King was and what he was about. And I'm hoping that someday she will, as she gets older, that she will go out and create good trouble. So Madeline, that's your challenge. All right, everybody enjoy lunch and we'll get back to things here soon.
Hello, I am Elaine Dukes. I am here at the MLK Commission Luncheon honoring Dr. Martin Luther King. We're very excited to be here every single year that they host this grand event. It is the largest in our region and definitely we believe one of the largest in the country. And it is that large because we honor our students with their essay responses. We also have an opportunity to have phenomenal speakers and individuals that are here in place supporting the concept of civil rights for all human beings. So I'm thrilled to be here each year to say thank you to Dr. Martin Luther King and to celebrate with others of like mind.
The first awards will be the Martin Luther King Essay Contest winners. They will be recognized by April Klobus, who's the president, CEO of the Michigan State University Federal Credit Union. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good, thank you.
I'm not as tall as everyone else. Good afternoon, everyone. I have the honor and privilege to introduce our essay contest winners today. And we are proud to be the presenting partner for the essay contest this year and many years in the past. And today we are going to salute and present the winners of this year's contest in 2 categories, 6th through 8th grade and 9th through 11th. The students wrote compositions around this year's theme, There Comes a Time When Silence is Betrayal. In the 6th through 8th grade category, out of 95 entries, and when you get to hear some of their stories, you'll understand how incredible these young people are. We have in 3rd place, Miss Alicia Viaches, 8th grade, Hazlitt Middle School. second place, we have Mr. Ian Opel, 8th grade, Hazlitt Middle School. We have to make sure we get everyone's family photos as well. And then in first place, we have Miss Vicki Freeman's 8th grade, Eastern High School, and Miss Freeman's will read her winning composition.
Say something. Those eyes, the ones on your face, see everything. And those ears, the ones in your head, hear everything. But those lips, the ones on your face, the face that shows fear, say nothing, do nothing, feel nothing. You turn your head and start to walk away. But if you walk away, you will betray. If you betray, you will forever be weighed down with the burden that is guilt. So say something, do something, be someone. Speak up, because your silence is their betrayal.
Next, we have 9th through 11th grade. There were 89 entries. In third place, we have Mr. Adam Doherty Durr, 10th grade, Lansing Catholic High School. Okay, in second place, we have Miss Nia Long, 9th grade, East Lansing High School. And in first place, we have Mr. Connor Long, who is the brother of our second place winner, 11th grade, East Lansing High School. And Mr. Long will read his winning composition.
This is called How You See Me. I was told by my parents in my early years that driving while black could create within me a deep sense of fear. License in hand for less than 30 days, the police car behind me on my way home from school caused my eyebrows to raise. The sirens blared. I was scared. Would I be hashtag Connor Long? Did they even care that my life mattered? My hands tightly gripped the wheel while my mind scanned the faces of Trayvon Martin, Philando Castile, and Emmett Till. A good student I am, I get good grades. From my teachers, coaches, and mentors, I always receive high praise. I play football and run track. What did I do wrong? Is my crime simply just being black? We thought your light was out, the officer would say, but it looks like it's not. You're free to go on your way. I sat still in the car and hung my head in shame, knowing being pulled over was just all part of the racial profiling game. Driving while black, walking while black, just being black stirs a different kind of hate. Yes, it makes some people irate with nowhere to escape. Take off your shady sunglasses, officer, so your vision can be crystal clear. Confess that you enjoy seeing my anger, frustration, and fears. The shackles placed on our feet is your attempt to hold us down. You want to label me a thug or a hoodlum just because I'm brown? No, I will not be a statistic. My mom will not bury her only son. These actions are not okay. A change is gonna come. I will not remain silent because that means you have won. I will not remain silent because I am my ancestors' son.
Each day I wake up recognizing the responsibility I have in my role as the CEO of the credit union. But on a day like today, I also recognize the responsibility that I have to make a difference in our community, and I invite all of you, after hearing Connor's essay, to think about the responsibility we have to each and every one in our community. With that, I'd like to end to let everyone in the room know, if you have young people in your lives, that the 2021 essay contest will open in October. Information is mailed to the area schools. If you would like to join the commission's listserv, please leave your email address with any commissioner. Also, the commission is now online at www.mlkmidmichigan.com. You can look there or on Facebook for any announcements and the entry forms for next year's contest. And please encourage those in your lives to apply as we can lift up our young people in the community. Thank you.
Next, we're going to award the Scholarship Awards. It's the Mark S. McDaniel Legacy Award. That's me. I'm still hasn't quite sunk in that this got named for me. That's another reason why I wanted my daughter and granddaughter, like Mary and I did, wanted them here, because someday after I go home, if you all know what that means, I'm hoping that maybe my granddaughter Madeline can stand up here and do the same thing. I'll tell you, man, today just brings out all this gush out of me. I don't get it. It just happens. But anyway, Sonera is proud to be the official sponsor of the 2020 Legacy Scholarship Contest. We are awarding a total of $17,500 in scholarships to graduating seniors today. We're standing here today to help these young ambassadors of change, give them an opportunity to reach their dreams. Out of nearly 50 applicants, these 5 recipients, 2 scholars and 3 finalists, were selected by a panel of community volunteers. I read every one of these essays. I read actually all of them. I usually just focus on the seniors, but I read all of them this year, and this contest was at a whole nother level, and I think it has something to do with what the theme is today. These are impactful, moving. You just heard one. You thought that was great. I mean, they're all of the same caliber, and it says something to what young people are bringing to us now. We're very lucky. So first, the finalist would be Miss. No, I got it. Miss Kiana Pugh of Everett High School, the finalist for a $2,500 scholarship. Next is Miss Kayla Edwards, East Lansing High School, another $2,500. Next is Miss Shifa Abdallah Hassan, Everett High School. She wrote an amazing piece. You know, she's a survivor of the Sudan genocide. They made her way as refugees into Chad and then ended up here in Lansing, Michigan. And she and her mom started a nonprofit because they're not staying silent about what is still happening over there. And they started a nonprofit to help the mothers and children that are still left. It was a great piece. Next, we have the two award winners of the finalists, and Miss Kayla Ellis of Lansing Christian School. They have $5,000 college scholarship. And next is Miss Madison Duncan, East Lansing High School. All right. Well, I'm going off script, which I don't go by a script anyway, but I'm just telling you I'm going off script. Y'all know what the definition of selfless is? It's someone who puts other people's concerns before themselves. You think about there's a long list of very important people in our history like Gandhi, Sister Teresa, Martin Luther King, John Lewis. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But we have one of the most selfless people right here in Lansing, who day in, day out focuses on, number one, family, the community that they live in, youth, and the vision that they could have someday of being, powerful and impactful. This person lives and breathes selflessness. And we thought it was time for that person to do something for herself. So I'd like to call Elaine Hardy up. We really think it's time that you have to do something that's about you, because you have helped so many people in this room and in East Lansing and Lansing and elsewhere, that we want to send you to Hawaii. No?
Thank you, but I'm not going to talk because I want us to keep going with the program because it's awesome.
All right, back on script. I'd like to have Tony Baltimore come up, who will make the award for the King Legacy Service Award. Oh, contest? Oh, I'm sorry. I went off script, see what happens. I'm sorry. Next, we're going to do the Martin Luther King Art Contest winners. Mr. Goran Jerkovic, who is the CEO of Delta. We have been spending a lot of time together here the last few days. Good to see you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. It's kind of hard to follow a giveaway of a Hawaiian vacation, so I'm sure our Delta Dental team can come up with something cool that everybody in the room can win. So we'll be back next year with something good. So we're honored to be among so many partners today to celebrate our community as well as Dr. King's teaching and vision for a better world. At Delta Dental in Michigan, we believe in the power of togetherness and how by uniting we can better support healthy, smart, vibrant communities. We invest in oral and overall health, as well as initiatives that attract and retain talent, grow business, and make our cities and neighborhoods better places to live. From funding dental clinics to bringing clean drinking water to school children, to investing in the arts, we are committed to making a difference together with our partners. And it's fitting that we learned about the power of togetherness from Dr. King. We must learn to live together as brothers or perish together as fools, he said. We remember his vision in our work every day as we put a renewed focus on harmony and civility in our everyday interactions with one another. And this powerful lesson is evident in the art we will see here today. It's kind of ironic for me to be presenting an art award because I have zero artistic ability, which my kids will tell you every day. And that's why I work for an insurance company. This year's contest invited students in grades 6 through 12 and adults to submit artwork that took into consideration the theme, "There comes a time when silence is betrayal." 7 winners were selected, 3 from middle school, 3 from high school, and 1 from the open adult category. It's my honor to recognize the winners. As I list off their names, please watch the screen to see their art, and please hold your applause until the end. So in the 6th to 8th grade winners, first place is Calvin Basonic from McDonald Middle School. Second place, Eli Birch, McDonald Middle School. Third place, Michaela Enger, McDonald Middle School. And for the 9th to 12th grade winners, first place, Iman Ali from East Lansing High School. Second place, Connie Aris from Ingham Academy. And third place, Toby Robinson from Everett High School. And the open adult winner, grand prize, is Brian Whitfield, which I think Brian is with us today here. So let's give all these artists and their great work a round of applause. All these works will be on display at the Broad Art Lab through tomorrow. Again, congratulations to all the students who took part in the 2nd Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Commission of Mid-Michigan Arts Contest. Thank you for sharing your passion and creativity. Thanks. Have a good day.
Thanks. All right, next, I'd like to introduce Tony Baltimore, who will make the presentation of the King Legacy and Service Award.
You all can clap for me. Mark, get away from me. Mark be up here crying, I'm crying. Isn't it contagious? Well, let the church say amen. It is my pleasure to stand on behalf of my fellow commissioners as we award this prestigious award, our highest award. The King Legacy Award is the highest honor bestowed upon a community member or an individual who exemplifies the work of Dr. King and humanity as a whole. Someone who has served others and their respectful communities and workplaces. The individual this year has been tireless in their pursuit of civil rights and equal justice for all. So I present the 2020 King Legacy Award to a civil rights icon the conscience of the United States Congress, the honorable member representing the 5th District in Atlanta, Mr. John Lewis. As you know, Mr. Lewis is unavailable to be with us today, so that's why we asked his colleague in Congress to accept the award on his behalf, and you can just say a little thank you on his behalf.
Yesterday, Tony called me and said, would you be willing to accept this award? And I cannot tell you what an honor it is to be a freshman member of Congress and sit next to Congressman Lewis. And be able to learn from someone who has truly changed history. We talked about him demanding that we all get in good trouble. He also said to all of us, find a way to get in the way. So I could not be more honored to be bringing this back to him. It'll be on the plane, and I thank everyone for showing him such wonderful support in his time of need.
I would just like to say I could go on and on about Congressman Lewis, but his bio you can read for yourselves. But it is a personal privilege to have honored him with this award after spending some 14 years in Congress myself as a staffer. And so to have walked the same halls of Congress in DC and worked on behalf of the American people, I thank you, and I know he thanks you, and we thank him for his service. Thank you. There is a short video.
There was so much hope, so much optimism after the March on Washington. When people left, as Dr. King suggested, we went back home, back to the heart of the Deep South. So many of us went into the state of Mississippi. We went into Alabama. We went to Selma. In Selma, only 2.1% of African Americans were registered to vote. The only time you could even attempt to register to vote was the first and third Mondays of each month. You had to stand in line, get a copy of the so-called literacy test, and hundreds and thousands of people would fail the so-called literacy test. They were told they could not read or write well enough. African American lawyers, doctors, teachers. So we started a series of demonstrations, standing in line at the courthouse. One evening, there was a demonstration for the right to vote. Nearby, Selma, a confrontation occurred, and a young man tried to protect his mother. He was shot in the stomach, and a few days later, he died at the local hospital in Selma. We made a decision to attempt to march from Selma to Montgomery, to dramatize to the nation and to the world that people of color wanted to register to vote. We started walking. I was one of the leaders of that effort. I was wearing a backpack before it became fashionable to wear backpacks. In this backpack, I had 2 books. I thought we were going to be arrested and that we were going to go to jail, so I wanted to have something to read in jail. I wanted to have something to eat in that backpack. I had an apple and I had an orange. Since I thought we were going to be arrested and go to jail, and I'd be in jail with my friends, my colleagues, and neighbors, I wanted to be able to brush my teeth. I had toothpaste and toothbrush. We get to the highest point on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Down below, we saw a sea of blue, Alabama state troopers. And we continued to walk. We came within hearing distance of the state troopers. And a man spoke up and said, I'm Major John Cloud of the Alabama State Troopers. This is an unlawful march. It would not be allowed to continue. I give you 3 minutes to disperse and return to your homes or to your church. And a young man walking beside me by the name of Jose William from Dr. King's organization said, Major, give us a moment to kneel and pray before we can pass word back for people to kneel and pray. The major said, "Troopers advance." And you saw these men putting on their gas masks. They came toward us, beating us with nightsticks, trampling us with horses, and releasing the tear gas. Was hit in the head by a state trooper with a nightstick. My legs went from under me. I thought I saw death. I thought I was going to die. I thought it was the last nonviolent protest for me. I don't recall how I made it back across that bridge, across the Alabama River, through the streets of Selma, back to that little church. But I do recall being back at the church. It's full to capacity. More than 2,000 people on the outside trying to get in to protest what had happened. And someone asked me to say something, and I stood up and said something like, "I don't understand it, how President Johnson can send troops to Vietnam. And can I send troops to Selma, Alabama, to protect people who only desires to register to vote?" And the next thing I knew, I'd been admitted to the Good Samaritan Hospital there in Selma, Alabama, with 16 other people. And the next morning, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his colleague, the Reverend Ralph Abernathy, came to visit us in the hospital. And Dr. King said, "Don't worry, we will make it from Selma to Montgomery if we get a Voting Rights Act passed." And he told us that he had urged religious leaders to come to Selma. So on Tuesday, March 9th, more than 1,000 ministers, priests, rabbis, and nuns came to Selma. And they marched to the point where we had been beaten 2 days earlier. That Tuesday night, one of the young ministers, who went out with 2 others to find something to eat, and on the way back from the little restaurant, they were attacked by members of the Klan. This young minister, James Reeb, was from Boston. He was so severely beaten, he was taken to a hospital in Birmingham, Alabama, where he died 2 days later. Selma gave us the Voting Rights Act the way Birmingham gave us the Civil Rights Act, and the March on Washington gave us the Civil Rights Act. If it hadn't been for Selma, hadn't been for the March on Washington, we wouldn't be where we are today, and there would be no Barack Obama as President of the United States of America.
John Lewis, congressional history, Black history, American history. Let him hear your applause in Washington. Come on.
Hi, I'm Chris Swope, Lansing City Clerk, and I'm glad and proud to be here at the largest and oldest MLK celebration in the country. We just heard from some truly inspirational speakers. Our Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist, as well as our Senator Debbie Stabenow and Gary Peters and our Congresswoman Alyssa Slotkin really gave some inspiring messages. If you aren't here, you should be next year.
Hi, I'm Bob Hoffman, and the annual MLK Luncheon to me is absolutely one of my favorite days of the year. So many people come out representing our community and so many surrounding communities. And for me, what it means is that we live in an amazing area of the country, of the state. Lansing comes together, and that is what MLK Day is all about to me, is coming together, celebrating our diversity, celebrating who we are as a people, as a nation. And so I'm really proud of Lansing. I'm really proud of this community. And I love today because I leave today on cloud 10 every single year. This is all friends here. So if you ever want to come to a community where you feel welcome, where you feel part of the community, start here at the MLK Luncheon, and I guarantee you'll leave on cloud 10 like me.
Hey, I'm Adam Williams, and I'm with Chicago Network, and this is...
Commissioner Jones, Bishop Jones, Chicago.
Yep, and we just want to talk about why this event is so great. MLK Day obviously is one of the greatest, in my mind, one of the greatest days of the year where we get to celebrate.
It is a deep pleasure to be here. One of the things that I've been doing for the last 3 years, this is my 4th year of coming here to Lansing, is because they have a phenomenal MLK celebration. Unlike anything I've ever seen, Sinair, I think, needs to be applauded twice, well, maybe 4 times. But we thank God for such a concern, such a sensitivity. I come not because of the speakers, but I come because of the energy and because of the enlightenment and the uplifting that we get from actually experiencing an organization like Sinair that goes at it the way they do. Such planning, such coordination, and this year, my goodness, the people that are here is just wow. I've never seen this many people come. I heard it was over 1,000, but that's not something that you can't believe because, as I said before, we come every year. And every year it has been a step higher. The bar is steady being raised. I don't know who's doing all of that, but we certainly appreciate the Sinair staff, all of its executives and the planning committee. And I must give a shout out to Commissioner Winston, Sir Winston, and also, of course, the director himself, none other than our good friend Mark, who's done such a phenomenal job.
Okay, well, as you all know, Martin Luther King has changed the entire fabric of our country, and his words still ring true today. And that is one of the reasons why we are here, to celebrate him, to celebrate his legacy, to celebrate his life. It is such a blessing to be here for such a time as this.
Today is a day of reflection and I think celebration for many people who are here of the life and works of Dr. King. Certainly with the hopes that at some point that we continue on and look to unify the community, the country, the state, and for all people to be treated equal. That means equal in education, employment opportunities, salaries, wages, and just people in general to be treated as one of God's children.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Dudley, and I am the daughter of Dr. Eugene Purnell Jr. and Mrs. Yvonne Purnell. And we are here today because my parents have lived through the movement, the civil rights movement. They were 18 and 19 years old and students and at Alabama State College when the bus boycott began. In fact, my parents handed out flyers and were there from the very beginning. They attended Dr. Martin Luther King's church, and my dad said Dr. King would come to their dorm room and sit down on their bed and talk to them and tell them, get a good education and be the best you can be in life. So I am so grateful that my parents are here. They have so many stories about that time. My father was a sharecropper. He came from nothing. He was the baby of 5 boys. He lived in a log cabin in Suggsville, Alabama. And now he is a PhD. He has a doctorate from the University of Michigan. My mother came from a small southern town. She has a master's from University of Michigan, and she taught 41 years, 39 years in East Lansing, Michigan. They have come quantum leaps, and it has all been because of a strong family, strong faith, and the influence of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So we are here to celebrate his legacy, and they are living the dream.
I am Yvonne Purnell, and I did attend Alabama State College as an undergrad. And in the 50s and 60s, it was really rough during that time. They burned crosses at our dorms, and a lot of the guys who had been in service came and protected us overnight, watched over us. But anyway, I participated in many of the marches, and our theme song was "We Shall Overcome Someday." That song has lots of meaning. There's a lot I could tell you, but I'm going to pass this on to my husband.
This is quite a privilege to talk about Dr. King and to attend the ceremony here. We did participate, and we were at Alabama State University, which was a historical black college. We had experiences with Dr. King before the bus boycott began, in which he would come to our dorm and sit and talk with us. And he was just that minister whose church we attended. It is really tough to talk about some of the things that happened there as we witnessed some of the atrocities of people of color trying to just get an education and trying to vote and going through the things that we saw. We saw old people walking who said, we're walking now because we want our grandkids to be able to ride the bus as passengers. Some of the atrocities were that I saw, I worked in a hospital, that there were people who came in who were beaten by officers for merely nothing, just trying to be as free and as equal as possible. But there's a different day, and we don't hold that against anybody because there was so much love in that city, along with the hate, that the love triumphed. And so we're here today to talk about and to celebrate what can happen when people love each other. And that's what Dr. King taught us.
I just wanted to add this. I want to add this. I did serve on the Martin Luther King Commission for 10 years, and that was just a pleasure and delight. And one of my jobs was to go into the different schools and make Black history presentation to the children. So that was a great thing that I enjoyed doing. Thank you.
One last thing. My daughter said we went to Michigan, the University of Michigan. I worked at Michigan State for 33 years as professor. So we don't talk about the University of Michigan up here. So you may want to erase that. But thanks a lot.
Well, my name is Rodney Page. I am the orchestral director of the Dr. Martin Luther King Dream Orchestra. I've been doing it now for 3 years, and it's just honestly one of the highlights of the year for me. One of the main reasons I love to do it is because it brings diversity of people, not just in the audience, but in the orchestra together to hear a genre of music that they may not normally hear, to celebrate what King wanted. But I have a mother that's from Selma, Alabama, and that lived through the civil rights movement. And so this day is especially special for me to be able to share my love of music with people in King's honor. So I'm honored to be here. I love being here, and I hope this just continues for many years to come.
Get your wiggle on and then say it right here. Come on. What about this side? I know you're conservative, but you can do better than that. Come on. Oh, get it. We got to come. It don't matter what color you are. It don't matter. We got to come together. Let me hear them. Come on, I'm not done with you. Drop it down. Say it. Come on, you're not too cute to say it. Come on, let me hear you. Stop chewing your food in the back. Let me hear you. Say it. We got to come together. Yeah. Get it. That's right, y'all. All three of y'all. Hey, yeah. Hey, yeah. Now we can go, y'all. They sing. Hey, come together right now. One more time. Come together. I lied again. Right now. Last time. Hey, come together right now. Over me. Yeah. Y'all sound good. They said we can't come together. I think we can. Thank you. Brandon Waddles, Dr. Brandon Waddles on piano from Detroit City. I would like to sing one more for you. This song I sang at the second inauguration for President Obama. So I'm going to sing it for you. I feel like going on. I feel like going on. Though trials come on every hand, I feel like going on. I feel like pressing on. I feel like pressing on. Though trials may come, Lord, on every hand, I feel like pressing on. I feel like going on. We have to keep going, don't we? I feel like going on. Though trials come, sorry, I felt like screaming on that. Every hand, I feel like going on. I just can't give up now. I've come too far from where I've started from. Nobody told me the road would be easy, and I don't believe he brought me this far. What? To leave me, I just can't, let me hear you, give up now. Yeah, I come too far from where I started from. Come on, I don't believe he brought me this. But come on, let me hear you. I don't believe. All three of y'all. Hey, I don't believe he didn't bring me this far to help me stand, make some changes, change my life. Hey, help somebody. Yes, he always chooses the one you don't expect to. Shout it out, talk about it, change the world. I don't believe yeah. Hey, I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me. Oh yeah, yeah. Thank you all so much. God bless you. Remember this room. Remember this beautiful room of different people all together. Thank you so much. My name is Letticy, not Ladisi. God bless you. Take care. Thank you so much.
Come on, Mid-Michigan.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
just wanted to dance. All right. We're introduce our next introducer. I'd like to have Danielle Robinson come up. She's with Jackson National. I have to say, Jackson National, best thing you ever did was hire her. I'm telling you, she represents you in this community so well. I'm blessed to have her husband work with me side by side every day. And I tell you, Lansing could not be in a better place to have both of them do what they do for all of us in this community. So with that, Danielle, cheer up.
All right, well, good afternoon. I am Danielle Robinson, and on behalf of Jackson's 4,000 associates, may I say what a pleasure it is to support the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. holiday events each year. But more than that, to support diversity, inclusion, and equity in our workplace every single day. With me today, I have leaders from Jackson's employee resource group, VIBE, or Visions in Black Excellence. These associates and their good work are just one example of Jackson's commitment to maintaining a culture of respect, where all associates can contribute toward our purpose to help Americans achieve financial freedom for life. So now, I am delighted to tell you about our esteemed keynote, Andrew Iden. Mr. Iden, an Atlanta native, was raised by a single mother and grew up reading everything, particularly comic books. After college, Andrew took a job with Congressman John Lewis in Washington, D.C. A year later, while serving as press secretary on the congressman's re-election campaign, Andrew had an idea that Congressman Lewis should write a comic book to tell the story of his involvement in the civil rights movement. Though it took a little convincing, Congressman Lewis eventually agreed on the condition that Andrew help him write it. Andrew became a driving force behind March, which in 2016 became the first comics work to ever win the National Book Award and reached #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. Andrew is a Robert F. Kennedy Book Award honoree, a Prince Award winner, a Siebert Medal winner, a Walter Dean Myers Award winner, a Carter G. Woodston Book Award winner, a 2-time Eisner Award winner, and the recipient of multiple Coretta Scott King honors. A graduate of Trinity College in Hartford and Georgetown University in Washington, Andrew wrote the first history of the 1957 comic book, Martin Luther King, The Montgomery Story, as his graduate thesis. Today, Andrew serves as digital director and policy advisor to Congressman Lewis in Washington, D.C. I think you'll agree we are in store for a treat today. Please help me give a warm Lansing welcome to Andrew Iden.
Thank you so much for that incredible introduction. I don't know who that person is. Let me start and first say, I wish I was not giving this speech. I wish John Lewis was here with you today. So let me read a letter from him to you. To the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Commission of Mid-Michigan and the people of the Mid-Michigan community. Dear friends, I'm sorry I cannot be with you to participate in the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day of celebration. Please know how much I was looking forward to being with you all. Celebrations such as yours serve an important role in shaping our understanding of Dr. King's legacy and ensuring that his work remains forever embedded in the fabric of the American consciousness. I've often said that each and every one of us has a role to play. All of us can make a contribution. And today, through your work with this commission, you are making a contribution. By speaking up and speaking out about the work of Dr. King, you are helping to create the beloved community here in America. There is much work to be done. We have come a great distance, made incredible progress, but we are not there yet. We still have many bridges to cross and dreams yet to be realized. But we cannot give up, we cannot give in, and we cannot give out. Our struggle is not the struggle of a day, a week, a month, or a year. It is the struggle of a lifetime. We must be hopeful and optimistic because I truly believe that someday, some way, we shall overcome. Please know that my heart is with you this day and every day. I'm grateful for the beautiful acts of support that I have read about in your community. And I deeply hope that someday I can see you all again. Keep the faith. John Lewis. Now, who am I? Why am I up here? Why do you all have a comic book at your desk, at your table? Well, it's my fault. I grew up in the congressman's district. He's been my congressman since I was 3 years old. And I was raised by a single mom. My father was a Turkish Muslim immigrant who left when I was very young. And in ways, it created a sense of righteous indignation in me. Growing up in the South, there weren't a lot of Turks. Nobody quite knew what that was. And certainly being raised by a single mother, I have no idea how she did it. She passed away about 2.5 years ago. I had to help my mother die. And getting to stand on stage like this, getting to tell her story is the way that I keep her alive. So for all the single mothers out there, we don't give you a day, but we should. Because you are the mothers of the movement. You are the mothers of all of us. You gave me strength and the ability to be up here and do my best to fill the shoes of John Lewis. So in that sense of righteous indignation as a child, I started reading comic books. I wanted to read stories about people who were doing the right thing because it was the right thing to do. Sure, back then it was a lot of white men in spandex. But it gave me a sense of morality. It gave me a sense of selflessness. That we all have a contribution to make, as the congressman said. And my mother fostered this. She let me go to comic book conventions. She let me go by myself when I was 13 and 14 years old. And what I loved about these conventions was that it was a community based around reading, based around the love of knowledge, based around a sense of righteous indignation that we can all make the world a better place. And so when I joined Congressman Lewis's staff, to be fair, I started out answering his mail, which I came to know was a tremendous responsibility in his office because of his history, because that's how he met Dr. King, because he wrote him a letter. And so when I started, it was the first thing I learned to write for him. And I remember thinking that every letter could be the next John Lewis, writing to this generation's Dr. King. And so after a while, I guess he liked my letters, and he asked me to serve as a press secretary on his re-election campaign in 2008. And so I moved back home, set up shop, and I spent every day with the congressman campaigning around Atlanta. It was hotter than I remember. Y'all don't have that problem here. But John Lewis, he was such a trooper, he would wear his full suit, and then he'd put a t-shirt over it. And I remember asking him, why do you do that? And he said, well, that's what Dr. King taught me to do. And that struck me, that these things that John Lewis did as habit, that he was teaching us as his young staffers, were the habits and lessons that he had learned directly from Dr. King himself. And so it was on that campaign that we started talking about, how do we teach the movement? I don't know if y'all recall, but 12 years ago, as Barack Obama was sweeping through the Democratic primaries, John Lewis and many of the figures of the civil rights movement remained largely unknown by the vast majority of Americans. And I remember being on that campaign, and I kept hearing people say, what have you done for me lately? And I was his staffer, and I was a little cheeky, and I said, well, he got you the right to vote. What more do you want? Do you use it? Have you shown up to every election? But even having grown up in his district, even having been his constituent since I was 3 years old, hearing John Lewis on that campaign tell the stories of SNCC, the stories of the young people of the movement, the power that they carried, the progress that they themselves drove for the movement. These were stories I had never heard as a child. I'd been to the King Center at least a half a dozen times. I went to Atlanta public schools, but nobody told me that 18, 19, 20-year-olds were responsible for being the foot soldiers in Dr. King's movement, that they pushed the progress forward more than almost any other group and demanded the most radical changes that we take for granted today. And so when it was coming down to the end of that campaign, Congressman, we were all hanging out. We were tired, been a long day. Folks started talking about what they were going to do when the campaign was over. Some folks said they were going to go to the beach. Some folks said they were going to go see their parents. And I said I was going to a comic book convention. And you can imagine, this is a room of people who look just as good as you do. Well-dressed, nice suits. And I said, I'm going to this comic book convention, and everybody laughed at me. This was before Iron Man was a movie. This is before Marvel made billions of dollars. This is before comics were what they are today. But I heard a voice from the back of the room, a deep voice, and he said, don't laugh. There was a comic book during the movement, and it was deeply influential. And it was John Lewis standing up for me as he stood up for so many of us. And that comic book was called Martin Luther King and the Montgomery Story. And I went home that night and I looked it up on the internet. It was beautiful. 16 pages cover to cover. 50s studio house style. It was an introduction to Gandhi and Rosa Parks and the philosophy and discipline of nonviolence and the story of the Montgomery bus boycotts. And I remember sitting there on my couch that night, looking at this comic, having spent the better part of that summer with John Lewis, hearing these stories that I never heard as a child, having this question in my mind, how do we teach the next generation? And then I remember thinking, well, why isn't there a John Lewis comic book? So I went back to work the next day. We had this same conversation again. And I raised my hand and I said, well, Congressman, I think you should write a comic book. Yeah, it sounded just like that. And the congressman, he was so sweet. He said, oh, maybe? Yeah, y'all got enough elected officials in the room. You know what that means. But I thought about it and I kept thinking about it and it stuck with me. And if there's one thing John Lewis likes to remind us, it is that you have to be persistent and consistent. And so I kept asking. I asked every day for the rest of the campaign. Finally, it was one day we were on the side of the road in South Fulton. Lightning started flashing and thunder was coming in. And I don't know if you guys know this, but John Lewis is kind of afraid of thunderstorms. And so he bolts for the car, leaves all his staff standing on the side of the road holding yard signs. And we're all running after him. We dive in the car, the rain's coming down. And one of the other volunteers in the campaign starts nudging me, saying, you know, I think you guys should talk about that comic book idea some more. I'm like, oh, you're gonna get me in trouble. Good trouble, I hope. And finally, the congressman, after I asked again, he said, okay, I'll do it, but only if you write it with me. And that moment changed my life. Now, a lot of people ask, why did it work? They don't understand. And I'll tell you this generation grew up on the internet. Their language is visual literacy, sequential narrative of words and pictures. That is how they communicate. And if you want to be able to teach them about their past and about their history and about complicated subjects, you can't talk down to them, and you have to do it in their language. But another piece of this is that I went back to grad school when I got back. I went at night. I was working for the congressman, going to grad school at night. I had no life. It's what we all go through. That's how we make it. When you grow up the child of a single parent, when you grow up poor, that's the only way. You gotta hustle. But I like to bring my eccentric ideas into the classroom. So when they asked me what I wanted to write my graduate thesis about, I said I wanted to write the history of Martin Luther King and the Montgomery story. And what did we find out? Not only did it help inspire some of the earliest acts of civil disobedience of the movement, but Dr. King himself helped edit it. Just let that set in. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., comic book editor. He was willing to take a risk. He edited that comic. They wrote it in 1956 and 1957. This was 2 years after the comic book hearings. Comics were as far from cool as they ever were, and that's saying something. But he understood the power of the mass medium. He understood the power of reaching young people, of telling his story. And it worked. Just as we've carried on that message from Dr. King, I hear, as I go around the country, countless people from the movement who say, I remember that comic book. I heard it last night at a reception here. Imagine. But you know, the thing I learned from March is that you take these risks. You believe in your ideas, but you never know if it's going to work until it works. The moment we knew March was going to work came just before book one was released. And I got a phone call from a reporter at the Wall Street Journal, of all places. And he said, you know, I don't usually do this, but I got an advance copy of your book and I loved it, and I wanted you to know I gave it to my 9-year-old son. And you may be interested to know, he read it, and he went and he put on his Sunday suit, and now he's marching around my house demanding equality for everyone. Imagine if we could instill a social consciousness in every 9-year-old in America. That's why I'm so grateful for the work of this commission, of everyone here in East Lansing. I don't know, or everyone here in Lansing, but I don't know if you know that in East Lansing, in 2014, the first school to use March as a freshman reading book was Michigan State University. So it's a tremendous honor to be back. But what we're solving is something called the 9-word problem. Have you guys ever heard that term before? It's a term coined by the Southern Poverty Law Center. And basically what it looked at was civil rights education standards throughout the United States. And what they found is that the vast majority of states fail to adequately teach the civil rights movement. And essentially, most students graduate from high school knowing only 9 words about the civil rights movement. Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, and I Have a Dream, and that's it. But because of the people here in Lansing and in East Lansing and the work of this commission and countless others, March is changing that. Your work is changing that. March is now the 2nd most taught graphic novel in America. We have to teach this generation what the civil rights movement fought for. And so I brought some receipts. We spent a lot of time in book 2, if you get a chance to read it, talking about the March on Washington. And one of the things that has always driven me nuts is it was put very nicely by Reverend Warnock, the pastor from Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta. And he said, the Dr. King that we celebrate today is not the Dr. King that was assassinated in 1968. Dr. King was a radical. He pushed progress. He pushed us all to believe in a more perfect union. And one of the things that I always like to talk to kids about, and I think it's important for us all to remember, is that they actually listed their demands at the March on Washington. It was not esoteric. It was not a suggestion. Every single one of the keynote speakers co-signed a list of demands. And they said essentially this. They wanted access to all public accommodations, which they got in the Civil Rights Act. They wanted the right to vote, which they got in the Voting Rights Act, and which we're fighting to hang on to. But then they asked for 3 more things. Fair housing, equal and quality education, and a living minimum wage. And they actually listed how much that minimum wage should be. They said it should be $2 an hour in 1963. Well, I got out my calculator and I looked up the inflation rate, and that's about $16.50 an hour today. These are very specific policy demands. And I believe that if Dr. King were alive today, when he talked about what it meant to have quality and equal education, he would also be outraged with what's happening with student loans. Because the reason I bring up those demands is because what you're looking at with those 3 unfulfilled promises, that everyone should have quality, affordable housing, that everyone should have a living wage, and that everyone should have access to equal education. When you take those apart, when you look at those 3 together, and you have wages going down, education getting more expensive, burdening an entire generation with debt that they will never pay off, and housing that results in segregation, housing that puts people in dangerous living conditions, housing that drives people out of their communities. When you take those 3 things together, you create a trap, a poverty trap. And Dr. King knew that. Dr. King put it down on paper. That's what they marched on Washington for. That's what he gave his life for. Let me put it another way. Imagine if the students of the civil rights movement, the students who led CORE and SNCC and COFO, imagine if they'd had student loan debt when they graduated. John Lewis went to American Baptist and then to Fisk. And when he graduated, he was paid $10 a week as the chairman of SNCC. $10 a week wouldn't pay your rent today. $10 a week would not pay your student loans. It would not pay food. You would not have clothes. If they had had that student loan debt, there would be no Civil Rights Act. There would be no Voting Rights Act. And we have to lift that burden of debt so that another generation is free to pay that price for us. There's a funnier way to look at this too. When John Lewis got married, the wedding announcement read, Lillian Miles to wed unemployed political activist John Lewis. People who are ahead of their time pay a price. And we have to help them. I'm going to tell you one more story, because I am so grateful for you having me. When I was in high school, I would bring comic books to my class. I would take them with me and read them. And one time I got caught having these comics out on my desk. My English teacher came by and she said, I'm sorry, you can't have those, I'm taking them. Those aren't real books. Well, John Lewis and I, we went back to my high school. We went back to my high school, and we had a wonderful conversation with that very same teacher about her experiences now teaching our graphic novels in her English class. I don't tell you that story as any form of comeuppance to the teacher, because she was doing the Lord's work, and frankly, she was expressing the prevailing wisdom of the time. But I offer that story as an example of the power of an idea whose time has come, and the brief period in which change is possible. So to paraphrase Dr. King, there is no sound more powerful than the marching feet of a determined people. I ask all of you to join us and march. Thank you.
So Andrew's delightful, isn't he? And he's super smart. And he did not, I think I heard in his introduction about him co-authoring the March book trilogy, of which there are 3. We, the commission, have gifted you, along with our partners from Jackson, each a copy of March Book 1 for you to take home. Part of what we want you to do with that book is, if you don't really enjoy reading a graphic novel, to give it to a 9-year-old or a 12-year-old or a 19-year-old and let them learn about the movement, because it is in their hands that we have to pass this movement to. So I am excited to be able to present to you again the amazing Dr. King Commission for 2020. I left my program, so I'm going to have to by sight recognize them. So I'm going to ask, are you going to come up first, or are you helping ladies? Okay. Geraldine Potter. Commissioner Rosa Moss Hargrove. Our Commission Secretary, Kelly Ellsworth Etchison, just way too many names. Our own Nicole Noor Williams, Dr. Denise Maybank, Kristen Shelley, Anthony Winston, Mr. Tony Baltimore, Mr. Ron Bacon, Mr. James McCurtis, Mr. Michael Flowers, Mr. Steve Jappinga, Tristan Wright, who is the most amazing vice chair of any vice chair anywhere, Dr. Brian Beverly, Chief Randy Telefaro, our own amazing Dr. Lee June, Commissioner Lonnie Lee, Commissioner Sheriff Scott Wigglesworth, and our elder statesman, our longest standing commissioner of 31 years, Mr. James Butler.
I'm sorry. I actually wanted to just share a couple things very quickly and be done. In 1985, I was introduced to the liberation theology of James H. Cone. And James H. Cone has introduced me to poets. He's introduced me to jazz musicians. He has introduced me to blues musicians. And James H. Cone has introduced me to activists. James H. Cone opens the 5th chapter of his book, The Cross and the Lynching Tree, with this epigraph from civil rights activist Ida B. Wells. Ida B. Wells wrote, "A colored woman accused of poisoning a white one was taken from the county jail and stripped naked and hung up in the county courthouse yard, and her body riddled with bullets and left exposed to view. Oh my God, can such a thing be, and no justice for it?" James Cone writes, "What was it that gave Wells the courage to risk her life for others whom she did not even know? What gave her the audacity to proclaim the truth in an era when women were not even expected to speak in public? The answer is found in her faith inherited from her ex-slave parents and the African American church community. It was a faith defined by the cross and the black cultural resistance to white supremacy. For Wells, faith in the God of Calvary was not an excuse for passivity. She rebuked those who patiently waited on God to save them from injustice. While faith in God empowered Wells to fight against lynching, the continued mob violence against blacks challenged her faith. The heart almost loses faith in Christianity, she wrote, when one thinks of the countless massacres of defenseless Negroes whose only crime was the attempt to exercise their right to vote. Oh God, when will these massacres stop? Like most blacks of her time, Wells dismissed white Christianity as hypocrisy. She said, "Why is mob murder permitted by Christian nation? White Christianity was not genuine because it either openly supported slavery, segregation, and lynching as the will of God, or it was silent about these evils. The nation cannot profess Christianity," Wells said in an essay, which makes the Golden Rule its foundation stone, and continue to deny equal opportunity for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness to the black race. She therefore challenged white liberal Christians to speak out against lynching or be condemned by their silence. Please pray with me. Almighty, eternal, and gracious God, grant to us the power of your Holy Spirit. Grant to us your grace. Grant to us the courage and conviction of our faith in you, that we might resist evil, injustice, and oppression in whatever forms we might find them. Grant that we might resist evil, injustice, and oppression in our nation, in our communities, in our workplaces, and even in our churches. Amen.
It's a great day for love. It's a great day to celebrate just working together and coming together as people, because the truth is we all were created equal. We all were created equal. And Dr. King's dream wasn't just about African Americans, but it was for all people of all kinds to have opportunity for the pursuit of happiness in this country.
Peter Stabenow, President of Lansing City Council, and I'm really appreciative of the Commission for putting this work together. It's important that we honor Dr. King's legacy every day, but we take a special opportunity today to come together as a community and really think about what he taught us, what the lessons we learned from his life and his legacy. And I'm very appreciative of the Commission for all the work they do to make today possible.
My name is David Odom. I work for the Lansing Fire Department. I'm the administration chief. I'm here today for the annual MLK Luncheon. And the reason why you see all these people here today is because they want to make sure that Martin Luther King's dream one day comes alive, that all people can live in harmony and unity and love with one another and peace.
Hi, I'm Dee Freeman, and I'm here today celebrating Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. This is a wonderful day. It's a day when we can get together and call for freedom, because we all need freedom. There are so many different challenges in this world today, and we need everybody to come together, unite as we are here today, and call for freedom for everyone.
The dream lives.